I'll tell you what, old ladies do love me at like dances or like
Uh
weddings and stuff. Like they'll, I don't know if they just want a little bit of that chocolate strange or something, but
huh.
old ladies will like they're touching my shoulder a little too long and they're wanting to
Right.
dance and
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm like, whoa,
Uh
come on
huh.
now.
Welcome to an episode of the Good Games Podcast. My name is James,
And I'm Leo.
and today we are going to be talking about the 2018 indie smash hit, The Messenger.
Ooh.
Um,
Yeah.
First of all, we're going to spoil the shit out of this game, so if you haven't played The Messenger,
Mhm.
go do that now because or just listen on if you don't care about spoilers. But there are some things in this game, even though it's just like a I don't know, whatever, a side-scrolling action
2D
game.
side scroller platformer thing.
There are definitely elements of this game that could be considered spoilers.
Sure.
Now I understand, Leo, you just moments ago finished The Messenger.
I did. I just finished rolling through the credits at the end.
Okay.
Mhm.
I want to ask you your favorite part and your least favorite part.
My favorite aspect of the game is how self-aware the game is
Yeah.
and the humor that comes with that, the
Hmm.
dialogue, and the mechanics. And
Hmm.
then my least favorite part is
Hmm.
it's a Metroidvania, which I'm just not a big
Is it
fan
a
of.
Metroidvania though? Because I don't think
Well, I'll say this.
this game calls itself a Metroidvania, and I don't think it is.
I'll say this. I don't typically like Metroidvania games.
Uh huh.
I'm
Okay.
not a platformer guy.
Okay.
Um,
Well, that's all this is.
I know. And
Uh
so
huh.
that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
maybe the term Metroidvania doesn't really apply as much to this game because I somehow enjoyed it enough to play
Yeah.
through it. And I'm not saying I hate Metroidvania style games
Uh-huh.
or platformers. I'm just saying that they're not typically something I spend a lot of time. Like I'll appreciate it. I'll play a couple hours, but this game I could not put down. Like I was excited to get
Really?
back into.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, Now, I mean, it wasn't like I played it over the last 2 weeks or so. Obviously I could put it down, but it always had just enough of a puzzle nature
Hmm.
to the mechanics and the game design, the map design that made me want to come back and like, oh, let me knock out the next level or knock out the next kind of
Hmm.
piece of the puzzle. And then I would get frustrated and stop for a while, but
Yeah.
then I would always come back to it. So it wasn't so much that I couldn't put it down, but that I always felt inclined to come back and get just a little bit further.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the part of it that I liked, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. So this game calls itself a Metroidvania. It explicitly makes references to Metroid.
Mhm.
It like in the game text there are references to Metroid. Uh, I don't think this game is a Metroidvania. It is. You can't just have like you can't just throw in backtracking into your game and then say it's a Metroidvania. Like the levels need to be designed in such a way that the like okay, when I play a Metroidvania, Castlevania, Metroid, Hollow Knight, whatever, there are aspects of that game that those games that require you to um, keep a mental note of like locations, specific places, um, and you kind of start building a mental map of the game's world.
Right.
Such that when you get a new power, a new ability, or whatever, you're like, oh my God, I know where to use this. I know there's this one specific area I need to get back to
Hmm.
because I can use my new ability there.
Kind of like a
Um,
Zelda sort of thing, where like you unlock this other item, and you know that there's this one thing that you passed earlier
yeah.
that you could probably
And
use that item on now.
yeah, and the like the level layouts in
I don't think that happens as much in this game.
it doesn't. That the
No.
specific thing I just described never happens in the messenger. You
Right.
like you do get new abilities, but you're
But for the next map.
immediately yeah, the very next room you're using those abilities. Like
Right.
there is no requirement for you to know where you need to get to on the map in order to use this new ability. The only time you backtrack in the messenger, which happens unfortunately frequently, and I say unfortunately frequently because you're always backtracking through like the same sections of the level that you've already played a million times.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
That happens a lot, and there are these long platforming gauntlets that you have to go back and forth through a lot. Which, like, I was thinking about the level design in a Castlevania, a Metroid, whatever, a Metroidvania game. Most of the good ones, the areas you backtrack through, they're never these like long, intense platforming gauntlets. They're these like big, wide open rooms that make traversal of like the main corridors of the map very easy. The messenger doesn't do that either. It's just like, it's kind of frustrating because like, you know, you've done this gauntlet like 5 times already. It's like, oh my god, I gotta go do this stupid area again. Like, there's never, the difference is like there is a specific like platforming requirement that you do in the messenger many different times, whereas that is not present in most Metroidvanias. Like,
yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, that what the messenger does is, like, yes, it's frustrating that you have to take kind of the same path over and over, and it's the same room full of the same creatures and the same platforms. But because of the unlocks that you get, like the first major one was the glide mechanic.
Yep.
And then later on you get like the rope dart. And what happens is the third time that you're going through that room, you've got so many additional gadgets that like it's like no longer really the same puzzle that it was the first time you went in there. And I found myself just like bulleting through zones that I used to have to take my time with. And I don't know if I got better at the game or if the game just gave me more mechanics to just zoom through that area a lot faster, you know?
Oh, I think it's a little of both. And that's kind of what makes a Metroidvania fun, like the good ones, is you go back, like you'll be exploring areas of the map and you'll go back to an area you've done earlier and you can, easily defeat all the old enemies and you can, bounce around and get to all these new locations. But like the abilities you get in the messenger just make the traversal easier, but they never they hardly ever unlock new places you can get to. There's like just a handful of times that ever happens.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
The game, there's not really an encouragement of exploration in the same way that there usually is in a Metroidvania game. It's, you almost always know exactly where in the world map you need to get to, and it's just a matter of getting there. Anyway, the reason I say all of the stuff I just say is evidence for my argument that I don't think the messenger is really a Metroidvania. I think it wants to be. Like, it's like, hey, look, we have backtracking. It's a Metroidvania, right, guys? Like, I don't know. It's a platformer. It's a non-linear platformer where you have levels that you go back through. Like, I don't think that just automatically makes it a Metroidvania.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and I think that's actually part of the reason I enjoy this game more, is because I don't like Metroidvanias really, usually, and even platformers I'm like about, but like this one, maybe the fact that it was consistently a forward motion.
Maybe
I like that linearness to it, but then like later on in the game, it's having you go back and revisit all of the zones that you would beat, like all the way back to the beginning of the game. That part I hated. So
I think that's the worst part of the game. That's like so where the game. That's where the game starts to slog a bit. Is when the like backtracking elements come in. Is when the game like really the pace really bogs down.
It's just not good at that. That's not what this game is about.
It's not. The game is at its best when it is a linear platformer.
Yeah, with interesting mechanics and puzzle-like platforming. That's very interesting.
Yeah. That they did really, really well. All the backtracking and like redoing area. That was not that great. Not so good. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I think this game is at its best. And there's kind of like 2 big reveals in the game, I would say. So the first, you're playing through all these stages, just one after the other. The game is just a very straightforward like old school platformer in the vein of like Ninja Gaiden, right? And actually, the game also makes an explicit reference to Ninja Gaiden, like,
It does. Yeah.
"Hey, we're just doing like we're just a platformer, whatever, whatever." Now, the first like big whatever shift or reveal or whatever in the game is when you take the game from like 8-bit to 16-bit, right? So it's like
Yeah.
NES to Super Nintendo or, you know, whatever. And there's like a graphical shift and a musical shift. Like all of the tracks shift to sound more like the Super Nintendo sound card as opposed to the NES with the whatever bleeps and bloops that the old NES used to have.
Synth and stuff, like synthesizers. Yeah.
But your abilities stay the same. It's just like a
your
graphical
animations
shift.
are way cooler too, though.
Oh, the animations are like, yeah. I enjoyed that a lot. I really like that. The art style in this game was really good. All of the like the art style, the music was amazing. What did you think of the music?
Oh, I'm a big fan. Yeah, big fan of the music.
Oh God, the music. The music was what was really propelling me through the early sections of the game.
Sure.
The soundtrack is
the music
banging.
is the only thing that kept me going when we had to go back and backtrack through all of the previous maps.
Yeah. And that's like the second big reveal is after it's like, hey, we're 8-bit and also 16-bit. You're like, oh, cool. And then they start introducing the shifting mechanic where you can shift between the 8-bit and 16-bit. Right. And then like after you do that, you kind of whatever, quote unquote, you fight what you think is going to be the final boss. And then like the next reveal is like, no, you're only about like halfway through the game, actually.
Yeah, that was a big moment.
Now we're like quote unquote a Metroidvania, and you gotta like go back and find all of these like hidden things that we've scattered throughout the world.
Oh God, it was the worst.
And I agree. That's where this game starts to bog down. I really wish this game was more linear. It was not. It's just the level design. The levels are not designed to be backtracked through. Like it that never feels fun. Just going back through the same stuff that you've done before. With like, I don't know. You know where you need to go. And it's just a matter of getting there. Like the game is not about exploration, which I think is a key component to a Metroidvania. And that's what there is hardly any exploration in The Messenger. It's just platforming. Almost all platforming, but what did you think? The first thing that caught me about this game was the soundtrack. The second thing was the game's sense of humor. I loved the sense of humor in this game. What'd you think?
I think so. I think going back to why I like the game is I think at its best it was like, finish this zone to get to the next shop checkpoint. So every checkpoint that you come across is kind of a traditional side scroller checkpoint. Would be kind of by default a checkpoint. But then every so often the checkpoint was like a little bigger and you could actually like walk into it and it was the shop. And it was just this kind of routine of like get to a new zone, go to the shop, talk to the shopkeeper, and he'll tell you about the current area and give you a story. And the story was always hilarious. And then it was like, then get to the boss, and then he'll tell you about the boss. And you beat the boss, and you go to the next zone and like rinse, repeat. And that was that sort of linear movement and with like little like just nuggets of humor in the shop was just what kept me going. Like working my way to the next shop scene,
Yep. Yeah, just the soundtrack and like, oh my God, yes, I'm almost to the shop again. I can't wait to hear the shopkeeper's next story, like the next and like the interaction, like your main character, the messenger, is kind of the like straight man, right? And the shopkeeper is like this incredibly sarcastic, just like cracking all these jokes at your expense almost always. It reminded me so much of the sense of humor that is present in like old school adventure games, where like a lot of like old school adventure games will like have a lot of jokes that are always at the protagonist's expense,
right? Or like meant for the player more than like
and even the art style, the portraits that came up, especially of the messenger's face, for some reason that just reminded me so much of like old school art style, like the way his eyes are drawn. these
Right.
just like
Like
big
the Monkey Island games you used to love.
yes,
Like
yes,
yeah.
these big like confused like very expressive eyes. Like
Yeah.
it was definitely yeah.
Yeah.
God,
I
can I tell you my favorite joke in this
okay.
game?
Yeah, I'll tell you mine. You tell me yours.
Okay. It happens in the second level.
Uh-huh.
There's this big checkpoint. You hit the checkpoint.
All right.
You gather a bunch of health and a bunch of there's like this currency that you can use,
Yeah.
magic. Yeah, you refill your health, refill your magic,
Right.
and like you're going in. And there's this big wide open area, and anyone who's played any platformers ever, you're like, okay, I know what happens here. This is a boss fight. I'm at the end zone of this level. There's a boss fight. You just walk through, and it like opens up, and you keep going, you keep going, and you keep going, and it just says end of level, and then it starts you on the next level.
Well,
and
that
then
was
the next.
the shopkeeper right before that tells you that
Yeah.
this is a rest zone and there's not going to be a boss. So like you don't believe him, you know.
Yeah.
But then there really is.
He's like, no, I was serious. There is
Yeah.
no boss at the end of this level. Like, there's just no boss. Like, it was good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
My favorite joke is I think from the very time you walk into the shop, you kind of look around and you kind of hit the up key is like the interact key.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
interact with everything that you can in the store, and on the very far end of the shop is a cabinet.
Yes, the
And
cabinet.
he's like, don't touch the cabinet. And then if you hit like up again, he's like, no, really, don't touch it. So he has like this kind of like pool of dialogue about not touching the cabinet. And he warns you, like, if you keep touching it, I'm going to tell you a long story. You're not going to be able to interrupt it. And if you keep it at it, eventually he will tell you this long story, and you can't skip any of it. And those stories, by the way, are the most like philosophical conversations that like the game creator is like giving you, the player. But the joke that I like about it is later on you actually get to touch the cabinet, and as part of the story he wants you to touch the cabinet, and if you try to leave the store instead of touching the cabinet, he's like, no, please do open the cabinet. And he
no,
won't
seriously, open the cabinet.
No, seriously, open. So if you try to leave over and over, it goes through the same spiel. And then the joke he makes is like, will it help if I pretend like I'm starting to loop over? And he goes back and says like the first piece of dialogue again to make you pretend like, and then if you skip that like 2 more times, then it's like, damn it, I thought that would work. I thought if it would made it seem like I looped that or whatever. That was hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of very good like video game jokes in here.
Yeah.
Like looping the game being aware of looping dialogue, like the game being aware of boss zones. Yeah, it's very good.
I even thought it was nice how the game even was like the most impressive part of that like kind of fourth wall breaking thing was when the game was aware of how players act. Like there's a moment where I think you become the shopkeeper or something.
Yep.
And there's like another like ninja player or soldier, and the first time he walks in the shop, he's kind of taking his time. It looks like he's pressing up on things, just like you would the first time. And then the second time, he's jumping around, and that's like what we do as players. And it's so like the fact that they like captured that in their fourth wall breaking joke like there. That was pretty good. Also, 2 things. This game was super loud.
Yeah.
Is that just me, or like I had to turn the volume down to like the minimum volume? I don't know what that was. Maybe that was just me.
No, yeah, that might be loud. What were you playing it on?
I'm PC, like.
Oh, okay. I was playing it on Switch. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
Maybe, I don't know. On PC, it felt like, I don't know if it's just like the 8-bit sound effects were just like super abrasive or something, but like I was like, turn this garbage down.
No, it's loud. It's loud.
And then I started playing with a keyboard at first. No one told me I should play this game with a controller. So I mean, I have a controller.
You definitely want to play this with a controller,
dude. I played the first 2 or 3 missions or zones or whatever with a keyboard, and then I was like, let me try this with a controller. Because you know why? Because when you die, you have this little demon thing that like resurrects you, and that's kind of a funny ongoing joke too.
Oh, I wanted to bring him up too. Yeah.
And at one point he said like, "Oh, did you just get a new controller?" He makes some joke about a controller, and I was like, "Oh, dude, this game would be so much easier with a controller." I think this game should definitely give you something at the beginning that says like, "You should play this game with a controller." I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, a lot of games have started doing this, like controller recommended.
Put a little thing at the beginning.
I just kind of default play everything with a controller, so I don't know. I didn't really.
It's my own fault.
except for like first person shooters. Like that's the only thing that feels
Right.
natural to me with keyboard and mouse. But like
Right.
everything else, I play with a controller.
Okay, how many
Uh,
deaths have you had? That little demon's keeping track.
oh, I don't know. I'd have to boot up my game, but it's a shitload. Uh,
he
uh,
makes you feel so bad. Like I've saved you this many times already.
So, to make clear what we're talking about, if when you die in this game, sort of the I don't know, the in-game explanation for you dying is you didn't actually die. This little magical demon comes in and freezes time, and right before the moment you would have died, he teleports you back to safety. So that's this game's explanation, like in-game lore explanation for death. Now, the mechanics of how this work, I really, really like,
Yeah, me too.
because the mechanics of the way this works is after you die, the demon kind of hangs around and he's like, hey, I saved you, so now I'm going to collect my payment for saving you. And any money that you pick up goes directly to the demon. Like he steals any of the currency that you pick up. And then after he's been around for long enough, or you collect a certain amount of currency or whatever, then he leaves and you can collect currency as normal. The reason I like this, especially compared to like the systems present in like Dark Souls or Shovel Knight or a lot of other platformers, what happens in those games, when you die, you lose whatever currency is on you, right? So that feels really, really punishing when you die. You're like, no, I just lost all of this stuff. Like, oh, damn it. Now, a lot of those games give you an opportunity to win that stuff back. But in contrast, the Messenger, you don't lose anything when you die in the Messenger. You just lose the ability to pick up more currency. The effect, the like mental effect that has on you is it feels like way less punishing when you die.
Right.
And like the like actual effect of that is if you're really struggling on one area, you just keep dying over and over and over again. It doesn't really matter because like you can just die as much as you want and you're not losing any currency. You just can't pick up any more currency until you figure out how to get past the part, or until you successfully get past the part that you're stuck on. I really liked that mechanically. I love the little demon. And yes, every time he brings you back to life, he like brings you down with some sort of quip. Yeah, there's some sort of put down like, I can't believe you've died in that pit again. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, man, I'm glad they assigned me to you. You're making me a fortune or whatever.
Yeah. One of my favorites was, hey, if there's somebody watching, you could just always say that there's input lag. Like,
yeah. Like, oh man, that was funny. That was funny. I gotta say, mechanically, like level design may not be great, but every other mechanic in this game I thought was awesome. Yes. Very innovative and well executed. Like movement feels great. Enemies feel like like correctly difficult. And like, so one of my favorite mechanics that I've yet to see anyone do this, the double jump is traditionally you just press A in the air. But in this game, you have to like melee something in the air, and then that unlocks a double jump for you while you're in the air.
I loved that. That felt so satisfying. If you got good at that, you could just keep jumping forever. That was really satisfying.
Yeah, and it was hard. Like it's hard to learn how to do, but once you do, like without a doubt, like I was going to ask you if you could recall the most difficult puzzle or boss. And for me, the most difficult puzzle by far was something that happened recently. Is like when you're like collecting these little notes at the end of the game, or I'm trying to pick up these little, what are they called? Little turd people. I don't know. The little
the phobogites or whatever. I don't know. Whatever,
people. Like in order to get to one, you had to like literally move along lanterns that went up and down and down and up, and enemies kind of floating around between the lanterns. And there's no platform. Like there's no platform at all. So it's like, have you mastered this yet? By the end of the game, they're asking you.
No, there's a bunch of skill checks in that game. Like, hey, have you gotten like the float mechanics down? Okay. Have you gotten the midair jumps down? That was very good. And to be clear, I think the level design in this game is really, really good too. Just don't make me backtrack through it and redo crap that I've already done before. Like, I don't want to do that. Like just as like a linear left to right, going forward platformer. The level design is awesome. When I say the level design sucks, it sucks in the context of it trying to be a Metroidvania and making you backtrack through shit you've already done. That was not successful. The rest of the game was awesome. Yeah, The Messenger. It's pretty good. Anything else with The Messenger?
One last thing. If you are like me and suck at fighting bosses, you will appreciate, as I did, that the whole beginning cutscene to every boss fight is skipped. If you go back to fight the boss.
Oh yeah. They skipped the intro. Yeah, that was good.
You know how big? That's huge, man. That's huge.
Yep.
It's like this game is a throwback to like those SNES platformers, but with like auto saving and smarter cutscene like skipping, and so that is two like quality of life things that just make it a lot better for the player. And that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, very good. Very funny game. One of the funniest games I've played in recent memory, which is a tie-in to our top 5 today. We're talking about our top 5 funniest video games.
Yeah.
You want to get into this?
So, I don't really know. I have a couple of games on here that are funny, like writing, and then a couple of them that are just funny, like they made me laugh a lot when I played them. So number 5.
I have the same mix of like games that have jokes and games that make me laugh.
Okay. Yeah. So all right, just want to make sure. So number 5 is a make me laugh sort of game. The game is called Hand Simulator. It is found on Steam. It is like $2 and it is hours of entertainment. If you have not played this game, it's marketed towards VR, but you don't need VR to play it. You can just play it on your PC. And basically, if you've been around long enough to remember Flash games in the browser, or I think there's like a doctor game that is popular on VR as well, where
I've seen Surgeon Simulator.
Yeah, Surgeon Simulator. So like if you would imagine that the letters on your keyboard QWER are the 4 fingers on your left hand, and then the space bar is your thumb. That is actually how the game has you control your hand. So, but it's like in a VR space. And so one of my favorite game modes, let's say, is it's like a Russian roulette sort of thing. But instead of being at the table across from one person and like, clicking the gun or whatever, it's however many players are in the game. So you can have like 8 of you and 7 other friends can play. And whoever can grab the gun, load the magazine, and pull the trigger first wins, basically. Like and point it at a friend. It is very difficult. The mouse controls your arm, the keyboard controls each individual finger, and hilarity ensues. Like, I mean, no one knows what they're doing. People are like dropping the gun, they're shooting at the ceiling. It's a whole thing. There's also like a melee mode, like gladiator style fighting mode, but like it's so hard just to even grab a weapon. It's the best $2 I ever spent.
Yeah, no, I've seen footage of games like that. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
My number 5. I defy you. Get yourself and 3 of your friends, sit down on your couch and play Duck Game, and tell me you're not gonna laugh.
Yeah.
I guarantee you'll be laughing at something in Duck Game. So Duck Game has it's a 2D a platform arena shooter sort of thing.
Sure, that sounds right. Yeah.
Something like that. It's like if sort of like if Super Smash Brothers was way more focused on guns and everything killed you in one hit.
Right.
So the thing that makes this game funny, it's twofold. I mean, the game does have a sense of humor, but the like mechanics are like so frenzied, and like the game goes so fast. Like rounds are about 5 to 10 seconds usually. So rounds go really fast, and like there's so much chaos in this game that like usually spawn something ridiculous happens and like two people die immediately, and then you're in this like ridiculous shootout with one other person, and then something else ridiculous happens.
Yeah.
You're just always laughing. And also like this game does have a sense of humor. It's not just the mechanics. Like one of you, so on your controller, the 4 face buttons are like jump, shoot, I think like throw item, and then there's a dedicated button to just quacking. There's a dedicated quack button that doesn't do anything, nothing. It doesn't do anything at all to affect like the game, other than it just makes your duck go quack. So yeah. So like usually whoever wins the round just spams the quack button or whatever. It's ridiculous. You cannot play this with your friends and not laugh. It is always a good fun time. Duck game.
Duck game. I have played that with you guys, and I did laugh. That's true. My number 4 also is kind of like a twofold in how it's funny. It would be GTA 5 / the GTA series.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like the game is definitely designed to be hilarious. Like they have all sorts of weird characters and some, not really any fourth wall breaking stuff, but just like goofy, like over the top sort of like events or characters or what have you, dialogue. But then they also, the mechanics and the physics of the game just have like an opening for weird things to happen in that game. Like I can crash a car and the guy never wears a seatbelt. He goes flying through the windshield and then like over a bridge and like something hilarious happens, or whatever kind of mechanics and the physics and stuff can cause. So GTA series, I guess they kind of all have that, but GTA 5 definitely has like the best like physics engine and stuff. So
I love the physics engine. My favorite thing to do is get on like one of those high-speed motorcycles, but then put the camera, because there's like alternate camera modes, put the camera in like cinematic stunt mode, which like frames the shot really cinematically, like really cool. But like the camera's not in a place at all. Like sometimes it's in front of you, sometimes it's behind you, sometimes it's like top down. You have like basically no control over your character at all because they keep switching where the camera is. So like the like super cinematic mode mixed with like you have no control over your character, and the first time you hit something, you're gonna like ragdoll into, it's the best way to experience the physics engine, in my opinion.
Sure, yeah, that's perfect.
My number 4. I've talked about previously with specific mention to this game being funny. It's Undertale, and it's funny. It's funny in sort of the same way that The Messenger is, in that it like uses its knowledge of game design to make jokes. So I think I've said some of these on these podcasts before, but I'll reiterate. In the very beginning of Undertale, there's you're just starting out, you're just learning how to play the game, and there's like a puzzle room with like a button and some spikes, I think, and you're like, okay, I got to press the button and the spikes go down. So you walk in, and one of the other characters goes, wait a minute, this looks way too dangerous. You're probably not going to figure this out. I'll just guide you through this room, and the NPC just guides you right through the spikes. I'm like, okay,
so they're not really.
That the only purpose of that room is just for a gag, like because like your mind is like, okay, I know what to do. I step on the button, the spikes go away, whatever. Like you've played a million other video games that work this way, but like the game's like, no, we're just gonna have a laugh in this room and then move on.
Yeah, that's a joke purely at the expense of the player. Like,
yeah. Those are my favorite type of jokes in Undertale. Also, the game's like characters are famously, or maybe even infamously, well written and just goofy. A lot of people love to talk about the characters and how well they're written and how they're developed and whatever. And there's a lot of also just good humor in the way the characters interact with each other.
Nice.
Undertale.
Undertale, classic game. All right, my number three
Mm.
is Stanley Parable.
Oh.
Yeah, that game was pretty much just written from top to bottom to be like sarcastic and humorous.
Oh yeah.
Um, that's basically it. I mean, there's no mechanic in the game in particular that made the gameplay really that funny. I guess it's kind of a standard FPS,
Yeah.
but it did a lot of that too. I think where like certain like map design sort of stuff would lead you to believe something is about to happen, or and then it would just kind
Mm.
of flip flop on you and on your head. You're like, oh, what? And then the whole
What
time, then
what is the Stanley Parable for people who don't know?
oh, man, that's kind of hard to describe.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I guess in short, it's a indie developed first person shooter that is heavily narrated, and it takes place in like an office building about Stanley, the main character, and basically it's the adventures of him going through whatever the narrator says he's going
Yeah.
through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
yeah,
Except that it's not even a shooter. There's no guns
yeah,
in the
yeah,
Stanley
no,
Parable.
yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
just like an experience.
It's a
First-person
first person joke game.
Yeah, basically. I think the original objective is just try to get out, right? Or
I don't know
something.
what the objective
There might not be
in
an
the
objective. I think you just are
there
there.
isn't. It's
Yeah,
just a deconstruction of
the mind.
video. Yeah, it's a deconstruction of video games, really, because that's kind of one of the jokes in the Stanley Parable. Like, there is no end, there is no way to beat the Stanley Parable. There's not you just
Yeah,
do the Stanley Parable.
yeah, and
Um,
that's part of the joke right there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So it's a fun experience.
Um, my number three is a very classic and sort of traditional game that people would probably think of when you think of funny games. It's Monkey Island, but
Mm.
specifically, and I'm sure hardcore Monkey Island fans would crucify me for saying my favorite is the third in the series, which is The Curse of Monkey Island. This is the game I played the most of. I love Curse of Monkey Island. Um, it was the first game to introduce Murray, the talking skull, who is now like a mainstay character in the Monkey
Yeah,
Island
I think
games.
I remember that character actually from the little I played
Oh
of
yeah,
those
well,
games.
if you played any of the Monkey Island games since the third one, it's kind of hard to forget Murray.
Yeah.
He I don't know. He's a reoccurring I don't know character who is a disembodied talking skull who I don't know. He's just a wacky character in the same way that a lot of Monkey Island characters are very wacky. But yeah, the thing that makes Monkey Island so good is I think it's also one of the first games to have a little bit of self-awareness, right? Because it's one of the first games that like kind of subverts the expectation of what you're going to be doing in a video game, because Guybrush Threepwood, who is the main character, wants to and this is the theme of every single Monkey Island game, he wants to be a mighty pirate, right? And that's kind of what a lot of traditional video games are, right? They're a power fantasy. You want to be the super awesome, great thing.
Yeah, you want to be the hero.
You want to be the hero. Except Guybrush is like this totally inept, bumbling, just he can't do anything. He's just this goofy nerd, right?
That already sounds funny to me.
Yeah. He just wants to be this great pirate, but he's just kind of a nerd. He's just kind of a goob. A lot of the jokes are in the same way, like the same way that in The Messenger, the shopkeeper makes fun of you, the protagonist.
Right.
Just about everyone in Monkey Island loves to make fun of Guybrush Threepwood and how much of a goob he is. But usually at the end of the day, Guybrush, he accomplishes whatever he's out to do, whether that's, rescue his girlfriend or defeat the zombie pirate LeChuck or whatever the objective of the game may be. He always gets the job done at the end of the day, even though he's a total whatever. goofball.
Number 2. I guess we'll go with both games. There's 2 games in this series that I know of, and they're both very funny. And it would be Portal 1 and 2.
Oh,
They are some FPS puzzle sort of adventures, made in the like Half-Life Source engine, originally at least. I guess 1 and 2 were, but it's funny in. The first game is funnier in terms of dialogue. As if like the first time you meet, what's her name? The
GLaDOS.
GLaDOS. The first time you meet her is just like a moment I will always remember in gaming. Like just the most hilarious character that just doesn't give a shit about you, and yet is like the main reason you're playing the game. And the second one kind of added the Source engine added some really fun like physics and ragdoll effects. So like all the turrets and everything. I remember like doing some interesting thing with these turrets and like putting portals under them and how they would react or what they would say as they were like falling. Like, so yeah, so a lot of good joke cracky things from the characters and then just some fun physics and stuff too. Portal series.
Yeah. My number 2 is the Stanley Parable.
Hey.
I absolutely love the Stanley Parable. Hey, by the way, did you hear? There is more endings coming to the Stanley Parable, and they're re-releasing it on consoles. Yes, console versions of the Stanley Parable are coming with more endings.
Oh, I'm gonna get Stanley Parable Switch Edition for sure.
Yes, yeah. And by the way, I encourage you to go watch the announcement trailer for the new console version of Stanley Parable. It's very good. I believe one of the lines in it is, "You've already played this game before, but you're going to buy it again because you're all suckers." It's like, yes, I will.
That's true. Take my wallet.
I love this game, and I am a sucker. So, like I said, when Leo was talking about the Stanley Parable, it's kind of a deconstruction of video games, right? When you start out, there is a narrator who's kind of narrating all of your actions, but then sometimes the narrator will give like a line of dialogue that hasn't necessarily happened yet. So like one of the very first ones is you come into a room with 2 doors and the narrator says, Stanley steps through the door on the left. And you then have a choice. You can do exactly what the narrator says you did, or you can disobey the narrator or whatever, not do what the narrator says and go through the door on the right. And that's kind of what happens in the Stanley Parable. It's you can be at odds with the narrator. You can do exactly what the narrator says. You can, and a lot of the times the narrator is just, okay, so let me give an example. So like I said, this game is kind of a deconstruction of video games. And we said before, like, there is no way to beat the game. There is no ending. There's just lots of endings. There is no the end. There's no true ending or whatever. One of my favorite, I can't remember if it's actually an ending or not, but there's a way, if you look at the achievement list, it says like, one of the achievements says like knock on door 329 or something like that.
Really?
And you're like, okay, cool. So you're in this big office building and you just knock on door 329 and the narrator is like, you did it! You knocked on door 329! Wow! And then he's like, did you really think it was going to be that easy? Like, no. We're not gonna give achievements away that easy. And then he's like, all right, you got to go click on every piece of paper in this room. You got to go click on every monitor. Now click on the door 3 times. Now click on the door 5 times. Click on the door 10 times. Now click on the door 20 times. And then like you go through this whole thing where the narrator's just describing these arbitrary things you have to do, and you're just doing them. And then at the very end, it's like, woo, you actually did it. Like, wow. Like, I can't believe you did all these crazy things. Now, look how much this achievement's worth. Like, when you started this, you thought it was worth 1 click. Now, look how many clicks it is. Like, look how satisfying this achievement is. It's just, I don't know. It's just a ridiculous deconstruction of the things we do in video games.
Yeah, I love like the gamer mind.
Yeah.
They just tear it apart. Man, that's awesome. I'm excited to get that on console now too.
Yeah, more endings, man.
Oh yeah. My number 1 is so good um, that I've talked about it on multiple top fives.
Oh,
Yeah.
hot damn.
So, and it's number one again.
Wow.
It is probably the game that I have laughed at the most
This is the funniest game. Here
of
we go.
all
Number
time.
one, funniest game.
And it was with you that I laughed.
What?
Playing
When
Xbox 360 and playing Deadliest Warrior 2.
Oh god. No, this can't be a number one again.
Dude, it is a number one. Like, this is the funniest game ever created. And
I will say it's pretty funny.
part of the reason it's so funny is because I don't think it's trying to be.
No, it's not. It's
so
not.
It's kind of like if we that's an endorsement I probably have yet to make, and that is like The Room is one of James and I's favorite movies. And it's what I mean. A lot of people know about it now because of the remake or the mockumentary, I guess, made recently.
Disaster Artist.
Artist, yeah. But it's similar. It's like the game version of that, or like it's like you could tell there was some amount of production value, and they're trying to hype it up as like the tie-in with the Spike TV, show or whatever, and it's super taking itself seriously. And then it's just so bad and so hilarious. God, if 3 number one slots on my list doesn't get people to play this game, I don't know what.
It is very like much like The Room in that it's like so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is, I don't know. It's harder. I know nobody does these things on purpose. I know Tommy Wiseau did not make The Room funny on purpose. And I'm sure the people making Deadliest Warrior did not make it like so bad it's good on purpose. But I feel like it's a lot harder to do in video games than it is in movies to make a so bad it's good video game. Because a lot of times when it's so bad it's good. Like when you make a bad game, it's either like too hard or too unremarkable or like too like just shittily made, like a lot of like shittily made games are not fun to play. This is not like there's, like you said, there's a high production value. There is like the game is functional, like you can play it, but like the animations are really goofy.
So
and like
goofy.
you can do all these dumb things, like you can just dismember, like you can have like no arms and like no legs and like still fight. You can basically reenact the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just this really goofy game where you're
It's
but
so
also
over the
the
top.
thing that makes it the really just the icing on the cake is these are all like actual real historical figures that you're fighting with.
Yeah.
So it's like,
William Wallace.
William Wallace and
Vlad
Alexander the
Impaler.
Great and
Yeah.
so it's like these like super important historical figures just like, oh, I cut this other guy's head off and blood went everywhere. It's just like, what is happening?
Yeah. It's so great.
Yeah. That is a funny game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the funniest game of all time, but it's pretty funny.
That couple of times playing with you that night was probably the most I've laughed in any single night of video gaming in my whole life.
We did laugh pretty hard. My number one funniest game is Portal, and I'm gonna go with the original Portal.
Okay.
Now I like Portal 2. I like that game a lot. But the games definitely have two like distinct, separate senses of humor, right?
Yeah, no,
Portal
I agree.
2's
I totally agree with that.
Portal 2's jokes are like all like right in your face. Like we are telling a joke. Here's the joke. Here's the punchline. Whatever. I love the joke in Portal 2 where at the very, very beginning, like your character's been in hibernation or whatever, and this robot comes up and he's like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, you've been asleep for so long. You like this was not intended. Like, just let me know you're okay. Like, say apple." And you're like, "What? How the hell do I say apple? Like, what?" And it's like, "Okay, just press A to say apple." And you press A, but of course A is mapped to the jump button, so your character just jumps. And he's like, no, don't jump, say apple. And then there's like an actual on-screen button prompt that says, press A to say apple. But when you press A, your character just jumps. And you're like, what the? Like, that's the kind of jokes that are in Portal 2. But I actually prefer the way more subtle.
Yeah.
It's very subtle joke telling in Portal One because um, if you play Portal, I mean, these games are so well known now and so famous. And I mean, almost everyone knows who GLaDOS is and the type of humor that are in these games. But I remember playing Portal for the first time and not really knowing what it was. It was just something that was. I got it for. I got the orange box for Team Fortress, right, and
Right,
for Half-Life, and
right.
like, hey, what's this other game called Portal? Like, this is whatever.
the
So you
last
pop
game you
Portal
played.
in, and there's kind of this robotic voice that's talking to you, and you're doing these puzzles, right? The main gimmick of the game is that you can make a portal on a wall and make another portal on another wall, and you can do this to any wall or ceiling or floor or whatever. You can go in one portal and come out the other, and that's kind of the way all of the puzzles are constructed around this portal gimmick. But this like disembodied voice is just talking to you through these puzzle rooms, and over time it gets like you start hearing things, and you're like, "Wait, what? What did it just say?" Like it starts very subtle, so it'll say like please beware. The vapor screen is sometimes known to evaporate teeth. And you're like, wait, what? What did that thing just say? And then it just like slowly over time gets more and more like aggressively menacing. And you're like, wait a minute, is this computer trying to kill me? And then, of course, at the end of the game, yes, the computer is trying to kill you because the puzzle chambers get more and more aggressively dangerous to the point where you're like doing puzzles over lava and like all these ridiculous things. But like the in-game explanation is like the computer is just kind of bored and just like toying with these test subjects and trying to kill them. It's very good if you don't. I just spoiled the entire thing, obviously, but it's very good if you haven't played Portal and you don't know what that is. The experience of playing that for the first time, and you're like, "Wait, what is happening right now? Oh God, this thing's trying to kill me!" Like that slow realization is like good.
Well, all of the writing for GLaDOS too, like because like then after that you're just trying to survive, and you're like you wind up like behind all these puzzles and like machines and everything, but she could still talk to you through like the intercom or something. So just continuously cracking jokes and just saying things like the classic cake is a lie or something about cake,
because when you escape from the test chambers, GLaDOS is like, oh no, please come back. There's cake. Like, I promise you that there's cake. Like, it'll be a delicious cake. But there's like all these scrawlings on the wall of like presumably test subjects who have previously escaped. That's like, no, the cake is a lie. Like, don't believe GLaDOS.
It's a funny game, man.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I mean, if it wasn't for Deadliest Warrior, which really is arguably not really a number one, that Portal would be the number one.
Hey man, it's your personal list. This is the game that made you laugh the most.
It's the same thing like I did last time. I think I said Deadliest Warrior was like the best fighting game, but really, if you just put it at number 5 and bump everything else one, that's probably like the real list. But I always like throwing it at number 1 just to throw you for a loop.
That's our top 5 funniest games. Go play them. They're funny. You can laugh. You can have a laugh right now. Go play them.
Yeah.
What do you want to endorse?
So this past weekend, actually, I was stuck at home.
You had a big snowstorm, right?
Yeah, we had a crazy snowstorm in good old North Carolina. We had like 14 or 15 inches of snow, and we couldn't drive anywhere.
That's a lot of snow.
Yeah, we prepared by buying a lot of food ahead of time, and we just kind of camped out in our house. We almost lost power once. So it was insane. But we used that opportunity to not get any work done and just sat around and watched Christmas movies.
That is awesome.
And I had an idea to endorse my lovely wife, Taryn, who I have to say something nice about now because she listened to last week's episode and she heard me talk about her hairy horse balls or whatever when I talked about Red Dead Redemption. So my beautiful, awesome, sexy wife had the great idea that I should endorse Die Hard as a Christmas movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know there's a lot of people out there who agree, and who there's a lot of like kind of it's a dividing topic. Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? That's the whole thing.
Right. Yeah,
So I know I
yeah.
have a lot of homies out there who totally agree Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I'm definitely in that boat. I do think it's a Christmas movie. It takes place on Christmas. There's plenty of Christmas jokes throughout the film, and you know what? It still holds up to this day. That movie is fantastic. Like that's hard to do for an action film, in the 80s or
Hmm.
90s, whatever it was. If you are not a believer of Die Hard as a Christmas movie, I recommend you check it out this holiday season and give it a
Die Hard.
watch.
Yeah. John McClane. He's dying hard. So yeah, while you were stuck inside in a snowstorm, I was visiting the lovely city of New Orleans last weekend.
Yeah, I've been there.
We had a little vacation. We were there for a wedding. Let me tell you, I got treated to one of the best shows I have ever seen in my entire life.
Really?
Yes, it was at the wedding reception. There was some. There were. I mean, it was a wedding reception. They were playing dance music. They had, whatever. They were playing like, dance music. They played like Bring Sexy Back. They had like Lumps. I think,
wow.
which is
Yeah.
is that
That's going back.
There were a pair of very nice, lovely older women.
Oh, women.
Yeah. These women were probably, I don't know, 80 plus years old.
Oh boy.
Dancing like they were in their 20s. I mean, these ladies were like, they were getting down, like shaking and like
Wow.
moving back. And like, I mean, these ladies were out there grinding. Like they
Wow.
had on their partners, like these old
Oh.
men.
Oh god.
I was like, holy crap, what is happening right now? This is amazing. Like
Wow.
these ladies were getting it. I mean, like,
My goodness.
yeah.
That's somebody's grandmother you're talking about, okay?
I know it is. I know, and I hope that they're not listening, or maybe they are. Maybe I'm. I don't know. It was an amazing show. That is not what I'm endorsing. I just wanted to.
Oh, I
tell
thought you
the
were
story.
endorsing like watching old ladies grind or something.
Absolutely, I'm
Okay.
endorsing. Yeah, I'm gonna do more than one endorsement. I'm gonna endorse going to random weddings and watching old ladies dance because maybe you'll get lucky enough and see old ladies like the ones I saw. Old ladies at weddings, man.
Sure.
I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you, these ladies could dance.
Yeah, I believe you.
It was amazing.
Wow.
No, I'm actually going to endorse, and this is probably not something everyone can do, but if you happen to ever take a vacation to the city of New Orleans, or if you ever visit there, or if you live there, you've probably already done this, but if you're in New Orleans, check out the National World War II Museum. This is what I'm actually endorsing. We did that while we were in New Orleans. We spent probably between 4 and 5 hours at the National World War II Museum. I could have spent like 8 hours there. We did not get everything done. That museum
Really?
is huge. Like, it's
Wow.
so big. All the exhibits are super, super interesting. So like they have like when you first walk in, one of the cool things they do is they give you like what they call a digital dog tag. And they have like certain like actual people who fought in World War II. And you can kind of, as you go throughout the museum, you can follow that person's story throughout the war. So like one of the very first things is they have like this actual recreation of what a train, like a train, what a train looked like in the 1940s, because a lot of people would be traveling cross country to go to like Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever recruitment centers. So like a lot of people's stories began in these trains. Then like maybe your person was Coast Guard and they got assigned to the war in the Pacific or whatever. Maybe your person's Army and they got deployed to Europe somewhere. Maybe they're Marines. They did one of the beach landings or whatever. It was super, super interesting. They have all of these exhibits. So they have like the two big main exhibits are divided between like the Pacific Theater in the war, right? And the like European front. So and they have, oh god, it's just so interesting to me. Like I'm not even that big into like history, but this museum was like so amazing. They have all of these uniforms. Like here's what
Wow, that's
U.S. Yeah, here's what U.S. soldiers wore. Here's what, and they have all of the replica,
yeah,
weapons. They have
yeah.
all of the. Here's what the tanks look like. The aircraft look like. They have like these huge, big aircraft that are suspended in the air. Like here's what that looked like.
Man, I'm kind of bummed because I was just there this year. I was there in May,
Mhm.
and I wish I knew about that because I'm a big like I am kind of a big history buff, and I go
Mhm.
to all the museums in Newtown. Usually, we were there with some friends this time, so we didn't really do
Right.
what we wanted to do most of the time because I would have hit up the casino too in New Orleans if I could. But yeah, that's awesome. That sounds really good.
Yeah, the museum was absolutely amazing. Like I said, I could have spent all day there. Yeah, there's even like little small exhibits. So like I said, the two big ones are the Pacific and Europe, but
Right.
they have like smaller exhibits. Like here's an exhibit on like Bob Hope, and here's like what comedy was like when he toured the like different army
Uh,
bases, and
right.
like here's some of the sets that he did, or you
Yeah.
can learn about that. Then it's like here they have this whole exhibit. Here's what life was like in America in the 1940s, and like
Sure.
here's how the war affected everyday life. Like
Hmm.
you had certain materials were harder to come by because of the they were being diverted to the war effort. So it was like, hey, here's a special cookbook that is just like wartime cookbook because there's a lot of ingredients that might not be available because of the war. So it's like here's how to maybe flour was being rationed or whatever. So here's how to whatever bake bread without flour. It was I don't know. It was like super super interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. It was very entertaining.
It's so weird that like just the fact that World War One and Two were like things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
just it's like almost unfathomable just the amount of war in those two wars, and like just worldwide, man. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
that
And
was.
I was kind of in the mood recently to watch like a good World War II documentary or something, just to like
Mhm.
have it sink in. You
Oh
know,
God, yeah. You really should have gone to this museum. That was one of the things we did. They
man,
had like a. It was like a hour long documentary that was like narrated by Tom Hanks.
what?
It was all right. Yeah,
Oh,
it was in the museum. Yeah.
by
Uh,
Tom Hanks. That's
by
crazy.
Tom Hanks. Yeah, it was the documentary was all right, but like I found it more interesting to go and like read about stuff in the different various exhibits because like the documentary by Tom Hanks. I mean, it was very good, but it was very just high level, just like just a very whatever high level glance at World War II. They didn't really dive into any of the specifics or like different. I don't know, specific things about the war. It was just a very general overview of what happened in World War II.
Gotcha. Oh man, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna have to go back
Yeah.
to New Orleans now. It's an
Yep.
excuse to go back.
There you go. Do it.
As if I needed any other excuse other than the beignets.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's and endorsement number 3 is if you're in New Orleans, go to Cafe Du Monde
Of
and
course.
have yourself a beignet. It was very nice because when we were there, it was a very cold, very chilly
Oh, was it?
morning.
Nice.
Yeah, it was extremely cold, and
Yeah.
the beignet is basically this very hot, sweet pastry that
Mm,
is covered. And when
sounds
I
good.
say covered, I mean not covered in powdered sugar. They
Smothered.
took like a bucket of powdered sugar and just
Yeah.
poured it on this pastry.
They're so hard to
Um,
eat. That stuff, as you breathe on it and it flies
yeah,
out.
yeah. Don't wear like
Anything.
solid color, like dark solid colors,
Yeah.
because you're gonna walk out of there covered in powdered sugar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You know, when we went at night and it was really busy and there was a line just to get beignets to go. And we
yep,
got in
same. Yeah.
line and some guy who worked at Cafe Du Monde walks up to us and is like, "Hey, you guys looking for beignets?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're in line for that." And he was like, "Well, come with me." And he walked us around to like I'll probably get this guy in trouble, but like he walked us around to the kitchen area and he's like, "Wait here for a second." And then he comes like, "How many did you want?" We're like, well, I think we want like 4 beignets. And then he comes out with like a bag. And he was like, yeah, it was, $3 for however many, he gives us the price and he stands around like waiting for a tip. This guy was smuggling beignets.
Whoa, beignet smuggler.
He was a beignet
illegal beignets
smuggler. He was
beignet black market.
He was like, hey, you want some beignets, man? Like he had like the trench coat and he's opening up. I got beignets of all sizes for you. Like this, I mean, he was in uniform, but yeah, that's how busy that place is. It is definitely an experience.
That's awesome.
You've made it as a restaurant when you've got people smuggling your goods.
Yeah, that's amazing. I sadly did not encounter that. There were some really good like improvisational jazz players outside when we were there.
Oh, sure, the music.
Yeah,
awesome.
No, very good. They were awesome. Is that our show?
I think that's it. That's a wrap.
All right. Our next show is the final show of the year. That means we're going to be talking about our favorite top 5 games of the year, the best games of 2018.
Yes.
And
our main game.
Bum,
bum, bum, bum.
Bum, 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 bum.
Such nerds.
That's Super Smash Brothers. We're going to be talking about Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is a game that was also released in 2018. So maybe it'll be on that top 5 list. Who knows?
Let's see if it makes it.
So stay tuned for our final show of the year. We might do something special for this final show too. We'll see what happens.
We've got some special plans. That's right.
We got some special plans. So be on the lookout for that last show of the year. It's going to be a good one.
Heck yeah.
And so for the Good Games Podcast, I am James.
And I am Leo.
We will see you next time.
See ya.
By the way, one last when we were we flew out a couple days ago, whatever. My final fifth endorsement,
fourth or fifth, something like that, yeah,
is if you're flying out of New Orleans, get to the airport early because the lines there were really bad. Anyway, so thankfully we did get to the airport early, but we're standing in line at TSA, and the line, you know how they have like ropes set up to like funnel people in line, whatever, around. The line was so long that they had run out of ropes, and people were just like filing, like whatever. And like, of course, people are, they're starting to get upset, right? They're going to miss their flights. People are getting grumpy. Nobody likes standing in line. Nobody likes being at the airport. Like, people are kind of whatever. Yeah, just, and like, thankfully we were there early, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So we're just waiting in this line. This is a really long line, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We're in this line 40 minutes, whatever. And, like, really awful line. And meanwhile, we're like looking over, and like, how they have the TSA pre-check where you can be pre-screened and you go through the line a lot faster. You don't have to take everything out of your bag. You don't have to whatever. And we're like, oh man, we got to do TSA pre-check next time, whatever. So we're looking over the TSA pre-check line. There's this dad and this kid. This kid must have been, I don't know, 5 years old, maybe. This kid's just kind of waddling behind his dad. And the dad's like, come on, son, like, hurry up, we gotta. And the kid's like looking over, and he's like seeing this big crowd of people. And this kid, he's got a loud voice too. He, for a 5-year-old, just goes, wow, I'd sure hate to be in that line. Like everyone, like right. It really just broke the tension in that airport because everyone was getting really upset, and everyone's like, oh, like kids say the darndest. They're like, whatever.
That's hilarious.